The galaxy had always whispered about Earth. To most civilizations, it was a forgotten world, small and insignificant in the vastness of space. The humans who lived there had once been bold, curious, and dangerous in their own way. But after the wars centuries ago, Earth vanished from the maps of most species. No one knew why. Some said humanity had destroyed itself in its own greed. Others said they had been conquered, wiped out by more powerful species. Merchants, travelers, and explorers who dared approach the Sol system reported strange anomalies, signals that didn't match any known technology, unexplained energy bursts near Jupiter and Saturn, and sometimes fleeting glimpses of enormous ships drifting silently through the asteroid belt. Most dismissed these reports as hallucinations, exaggerations, or myths. The Council laughed at them. They had long believed that humans were gone forever, yet deep beneath the clouds of Earth, far below the surface and beyond the eyes of satellites, humanity had not disappeared. They had retreated. They had learned. They had waited. Entire fleets, unseen and unknown, lay hidden in the dark places of the solar system. Humans had built enormous stations inside asteroids, deep under oceans, and even beyond Pluto. They had crafted ships designed not for show but for survival and for power. Generations of engineers, scientists, and warriors had worked in silence. Every mistake, every battle, every defeat of the past had been studied. Every weakness had been turned into strength. Humans did not vanish because they were weak. They vanished to prepare. On the surface, life continued as normal. Cities glittered at night, machines hummed quietly, and people walked through their streets unaware of the eyes watching the stars above. Yet, under the surface, in the shadows of massive underground shipyards, humans moved like shadows themselves. Engineers checked plasma conduits, soldiers drilled endlessly in zero-gravity chambers, and captains studied holographic star charts, plotting courses no one else would dare. The largest of the hidden fleets were ready to move at a moment's notice, equipped with weapons that could tear apart even the mightiest alien vessels. And all of it was waiting for the right time. Stories of human ingenuity had not completely disappeared from the galaxy. A few old veterans remembered the Terran Wars, when humans had fought against countless enemies, sometimes losing, but always surviving. They remembered how humans had burned through enemy lines with ships that should have been destroyed in seconds. They remembered human diplomacy, strange and chaotic, yet oddly effective, which had left even the most powerful empires frustrated. And they remembered the strange, fearless quality humans possessed, a will that refused to bend. That will had not faded. It had only grown. Among the stars, rumors began to stir again. Small merchant convoys reported seeing strange formations appear and disappear near the asteroid belt. Patrol ships sent to investigate were met with strange interference. Shields flickered, communications broke down, and sensors detected massive energy spikes that vanished as quickly as they came. The galaxy dismissed these events with nervous laughter, but a few wise eyes, old and scarred from previous battles with humanity, felt a chill. There was something out there, something hidden, something waiting. For the humans, silence had been their weapon. Patience had been their shield. They knew the galaxy had underestimated them. Every empire that laughed at Earth, every species that called humanity weak or primitive was about to learn a truth that had been kept in shadow for generations. The humans of Earth were not broken. They were not gone. They were ready. And in the cold, dark reaches of space far beyond the eyes of the Council, the first signs of movement began. A shadow flickered across the belt of asteroids near Jupiter. A silent hum echoed in the void. The long-hidden fleet was stirring. Humanity had been quiet for centuries, but silence, they knew, could be louder than war. And when humanity finally spoke, when they finally moved, the galaxy would never forget the sound. The Galactic Council had always considered itself wise, just, and all-seeing. Its massive chamber floated above a serene gas giant, glittering with crystal lights that reflected the power of countless civilizations. Representatives of thousands of species had gathered, each claiming their place among the stars as rulers, diplomats, or warriors. Yet on this day, the council had convened for a reason that most found ridiculous. Reports of human activity had reached them. Cargo ships spoke of strange energy bursts near Jupiter. Scouts claimed to have glimpsed enormous ships drifting in the asteroid belt, cloaked in shadows. Energy readings suggested weapons of immense power lying dormant within the Sol system. And yet when these warnings were presented, the chamber erupted in laughter. Humans? The Threx ambassador hissed, his mandibles clacking in amusement. They are dust. Their fleets are gone. Their cities are ruins. And you expect us to believe they are a threat again? A chorus of agreement followed. The Shular delegate snorted. Even if they had ships, they are weak, primitive, reckless, impulsive. We have faced stronger foes in our morning drills. The laughter swelled, filling the chamber like a tidal wave. Holograms of Earth flickered on the grand projection, showing a small blue world, peaceful and seemingly fragile. Many representatives leaned back in their seats, unconcerned, smug in their certainty. They had studied humanity for centuries, cataloged every known technology, every war tactic, every failed rebellion. Humans were a footnote, a story of curiosity, bravery, and ultimate failure. But then, a quiet voice spoke from the far end of the chamber. It was the Kalar general, ancient and scarred, who had once fought alongside humans during the Terran Wars. His armor bore scratches of battles long past, and his eyes, gray as dying stars, were calm yet sharp. You do not understand them, he said slowly, his voice cutting through the laughter like a blade. You have studied them with pride, but you have never felt them. You do not know their patience, you do not know their cunning. You do not know that humans do not vanish out of weakness. They vanish to wait, to learn, to sharpen themselves for the moment the galaxy forgets their danger. Silence fell for a heartbeat. The Kalar's words hung in the air, strange and unsettling. Yet before anyone could respond, the laughter returned. No one wanted to believe the old general. No one wanted to admit the truth. Your words are sentimental, a luminary diplomat said, her voice dripping with disdain. Humans are children lost in a dangerous universe. They were lucky to survive the last century. Let them sleep in their blue rock. It changes nothing. But the Kalar did not flinch. He leaned forward, his hands gripping the edge of the table. You call them children, he said, his voice rising. But these children learned every secret of war, every flaw in your fleets, every weakness in your empires. They learned patience when others burned with pride. They learned cunning when others shouted for blood. And when they finally rise, they will not ask for mercy. They will not offer negotiation. They will strike and the galaxy will tremble. The chamber murmured in discomfort. Some shifted uneasily, unable to dismiss the weight of his words. But the council, as a whole, continued to cling to their arrogance. They had survived countless threats, faced deadly empires, and conquered rivals far older than humanity. How could a species long thought extinct now threaten the balance of the galaxy? Outside the chamber, beyond the walls of the council, the first signs of movement began near Earth. Hidden fleets stirred, shadows gliding silently through the void. Systems that had once mapped humanity's every known weapon now recorded anomalies they could not explain. Energy spikes pulsed in rhythms no one could predict. And far below, humans watched the stars with calm anticipation, waiting for the galaxy to mock them one last time before the reckoning. For centuries, they had remained quiet. They had let empires grow arrogant. They had let fleets overextend, let weaknesses multiply. And now, they were ready. The council did not know it yet, but their laughter had been premature. They had judged a species by what it showed them, never by what it hid. And what Earth hid was more dangerous than anyone could imagine the galaxy. Had laughed at Earth's silence, but it would soon learn that silence could be more terrifying than any roar. The Vorax swarm, a relentless insectoid species that had consumed hundreds of systems, moved like a dark tide across the mid-rim. Worlds that had stood for millennia were reduced to ash and broken moons. Station after station fell, and even the Council's strongest fleets found themselves overwhelmed by the swarm's numbers and ferocity. In the Council chamber, panic began to replace arrogance. Messages arrived faster than diplomats could read them. Entire sectors were lost. Trade routes vanished. Colonies that had grown rich and proud were erased in a single day. "Send reinforcements," cried some. "We cannot hold them," shouted others. Yet every fleet that tried to confront the swarm was torn apart. Nothing in the galaxy seemed able to stop them. Amid this chaos, some voices remembered Earth. Whispers of the long-hidden human fleet began to resurface. The Kalar general's warnings echoed in the minds of a few council members. Could the humans, long thought extinct, be the only hope left? But when messages were sent to Sul, there was only silence. Hours stretched into days. Days stretched into a week. Humanity did not respond. Their silence was maddening. For many, it was proof that humans were truly gone. For others, it was a warning. Do not underestimate them. The Vorak, however, felt no hesitation. They surged forward with brutal efficiency. Their endless ships darkened the edges of solar systems, stripping planets bare, leaving nothing but smoldering ruins. By the time they reached the Sol system, they expected to find an empty world, easy prey, a planet of dust and weakness. The swarm had no reason to fear, no reason to pause, no reason to consider that Earth had been watching, waiting, preparing. Beneath the surface, deep within Earth's orbit, humans moved like shadows in a machine of quiet precision. Commanders stood over holographic maps, tracing the paths of Vorak fleets with calm calculation. Weapons engineers adjusted pulse cannons and rail launchers. Pilots drilled endlessly in zero-gravity simulators, training for moments that had been predicted and rehearsed for generations. Every soldier knew their role, every system knew its purpose, and every fleet lay in wait for the right instant. Humanity did not rush. Humanity did not panic. Humanity prepared. Then the Vorak arrived. Their ships breached Neptune's orbit, and the first skirmishes began. The swarm expected little resistance, a few planetary defenses, perhaps a scattering of defensive drones. But what they encountered was something far beyond their reckoning. One by one, the Vorak vanguard fleets disappeared. Sensors overloaded. Weapon systems failed. Energy fields spiked with unnatural intensity. The humans had begun their strike, but not fully. They were testing. They were measuring. They were sending a warning in the language of war. The galaxy had been foolish to assume humans were powerless. The Vorak did not understand the scale of what they faced. Every destroyed ship only fueled humanity's preparation. Every movement, calculated with deadly precision. On Earth, people continued their lives above ground, unaware of the fleets that lay hidden in the dark. Yet in secret command centers, humans watched, controlled, and waited. They had prepared for this day for centuries. The galaxy had laughed. The galaxy had mocked. And now, as the swarm advanced on their home, the humans' patience finally paid off. The spark of war had been struck. The first move was subtle, but it carried a weight the galaxy had never known. Humanity's silence had been a shield, and now that shield was breaking. The Vorak thought they were hunting prey. In truth, they had just walked into a storm that had been centuries in the making. And as the first human fleet moved from the shadows, the galaxy felt a tremor of fear it would never forget. The Vorak thought they were unstoppable. Entire fleets of insectoid ships had crushed countless civilizations, leaving nothing but ash and silence in their wake. They believed Sul would be just another meal. They did not expect the universe to shiver at a secret that had been hidden. For centuries, deep near Neptune, a ripple appeared in the void. Almost invisible at first, it shimmered like a heat wave across frozen space, distorting the stars behind it. Then, with a slow, terrifying grace, the space itself split open. From the rift emerged an enormous black arch, taller than any starship, pulsing with strange, Human energy. It was not a natural phenomenon. It was not alien. It was human. The Shadow Gate, a weapon and a portal hidden for generations, had been activated. From its glowing surface, ships emerged like phantoms. They were enormous, sleek, and designed with a perfection that defied the galaxy's understanding. Hulls shimmered with cloaking fields, engines burned with a silent fire, and weapons charged with energy that bent the very fabric of reality. These were not the primitive fleets the galaxy remembered. These were predators that had slept in silence, sharpening their claws for the day the galaxy underestimated them. The Vorak did not react in time. Their scouts, sent to investigate the anomaly, were destroyed before the fleet even realized the danger. Massive pulse cannons cut through their forward ships, while invisible rail weapons cracked through shields like glass. Drones swarmed like a storm of living metal, tearing apart the insectoid hulls with a precision that no organic mind could comprehend. In the command centers hidden beneath Earth's surface, humans watched the battle unfold with calm eyes. Generals spoke in concise orders, pilots adjusted to new threats instantly, and engineers monitored weapon systems, ready to push the fleet to its limits. Every movement had been calculated for centuries, every attack rehearsed in simulation after simulation. Humanity had waited, and now they moved like a single, unstoppable organism. The Vorak tried to retreat. They had never faced an enemy that struck with such accuracy and speed. Entire wings of their fleet vanished within minutes, their screams of frustration lost in the vacuum of space. The Shadow Gate pulsed, glowing brighter with each destruction, feeding energy into more ships that emerged from the other side. It was not just a portal. It was a promise of annihilation, a declaration that the galaxy had misjudged humans at its peril. The first communications from Earth were brief, but terrifying. Across every channel, every system, every ship, a single message was transmitted. You touched soul, now feel the price. The galaxy's hubris shattered. Species that had mocked humanity, that had written them off as extinct, suddenly realized the truth. Humans were not fragile. Humans were not weak. Humans were patient beyond measure, cunning beyond calculation, and capable of creating weapons and fleets that no one had imagined. The Shadow Gate continued to release ships, each one more formidable than the last. Battleships with energy shields that adapted to enemy fire, cruisers with cloaked stealth systems that made them untouchable, and smaller, fast-moving attack vessels that struck like lightning, erasing entire wings of the Vorak swarm before they could react. The hidden human fleet, once silent and unseen, now dominated the battlefield with terrifying elegance. Above Earth, life continued as if nothing had changed. Cities sparkled under sunlight, unaware of the war being fought for them in the cold darkness of space. But the humans in the shadows had made their move. They were no longer waiting. The Shadow Gate had opened, and with it, humanity had unleashed a force the galaxy had never truly known. The Vorak would learn a painful truth. Some storms do not announce themselves. They strike from silence, from patience, from shadows. And Earth's storm had finally arrived. The Vorak thought the first wave of human ships was only a warning. They thought that perhaps the humans had only a few hidden vessels, enough to defend their world but not enough to threaten the galaxy. They were wrong. From the Shadow Gate, more ships emerged. Hundreds, then thousands, each crafted with lethal precision. Battleships the size of moons, armed with pulse cannons that could shatter shields in seconds, glided silently through space. Smaller vessels darted between the larger ships, striking with speed and accuracy that no Vorak had ever imagined. Drones swarmed like locusts, breaking apart the alien ships piece by piece. The humans did not merely fight. They orchestrated destruction as if it were a symphony. Each strike calculated, each movement synchronized. On the Vorak side, panic began to spread. Their commanders tried to regroup, but it was useless. Every maneuver the swarm attempted was anticipated. Every counterattack met with devastating force. Massive energy beams tore through the heart of the Vorak fleet, their shields crumbling like glass under the relentless assault. And it was not only strength that terrified the swarm, it was the humans' patience. Ships that had waited hidden for centuries struck at the exact moment the Vorak were overextended, attacking supply lines, command vessels, and the massive carriers that transported their endless numbers. Humans had studied their enemy for decades in silence, learning every weakness, and now they exploited it without mercy. From the command centers beneath Earth's oceans, generals spoke with calm authority. Strike the forward wing. Collapse their formation. Remember, precision over power. Pilots adjusted instantly, executing maneuvers drilled into them since childhood. Every human knew their role. Every human trusted each other completely, and above all, they trusted their planet. They fought not for glory, not for conquest, but for survival, for their home. Every pulse cannon fired, every rail weapon launched, carried the weight of Earth itself, and the galaxy could feel it. It was not merely technology that struck the Vorak, it was the will of an entire species, a force of nature that refused to be crushed. The Vorak tried to call for reinforcements. They tried to strike at the Shadow Gate, but humans anticipated this as well. Cloaked vessels flanked the attackers before they could reach the gate. Drones intercepted their reinforcements mid-flight. Command ships were destroyed one after another, leaving the swarm leaderless, panicked, and exposed. Amid the destruction, a single human voice transmitted across all systems, calm but full of authority. You chose to touch Saul. You chose to threaten our home. Now you will learn the cost of underestimating humanity. The words were simple, yet they carried a weight that the Vorak could not comprehend. It was not hatred, not vengeance. They were showing what humanity could do when forced to protect what mattered most. Every planet the Vorak had conquered had been destroyed. Every empire that had laughed at Earth now trembled. Humanity's wrath was methodical, unstoppable, and absolute. By the time the first battle ended, the Vorak fleet was broken. Thousands of ships had vanished into debris. Survivors fled in disarray, scattering into the void. The hidden human fleet did not give chase immediately. They allowed the survivors to understand the lesson. They did not fight for pleasure. They fought to survive and to show the galaxy that humanity was no longer a species to be underestimated. The galaxy watched, in awe and fear. What had been thought extinct, weak, and insignificant had returned as a storm no one could resist. The humans had waited patiently, hidden in the shadows, and now, when the time was right, they struck with a power that few could imagine. Earth was no longer silent. The Shadow Gate had been released. Humanity had emerged, and the galaxy would never again make the mistake of thinking humans were weak. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Entire Vorak fleets, once thought unstoppable, had been shattered in the cold vacuum of space. Reports streamed in from every sector. Systems that had once feared extinction were now alive, but trembling, as news of Earth's hidden fleet spread like wildfire. Every species, every empire, every ship knew the truth. Humanity had returned, and they were more powerful than anyone could imagine. The Galactic Council convened again, but this time there was no laughter. Panic replaced their arrogance. The old Kalar general who had warned them centuries ago watched silently, his gray eyes calm but piercing. He had known this day would come, and now he observed the fear in the eyes of those who had dismissed humanity as extinct. The laughter, the mocking, everything had ended. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and it would pay the price for that mistake. Ambassadors from dozens of species sent messages to Earth, begging for alliances, aid, or mercy. Every call was met with silence. Humanity did not need to speak. They were showing their power through action. And in every battle, their precision, patience, and discipline shone. It was not chaos or luck that had destroyed the Vorak. It was planning, strategy, and an unyielding will. The humans did not conquer for glory, nor did they strike for revenge. Their actions were deliberate, calculated, and just. They moved through the galaxy like a storm, reclaiming lost honor, defending their home, and proving a single point. No species, no empire, no army should ever underestimate humanity again, even The Council's greatest fleets began to tremble. They had weapons, fleets, and empires that spanned light years. Yet they watched in fear as humans obliterated what they had assumed was impossible. Entire battle simulations, centuries of tactical study, and every known method of war could not predict the humans' precision. They moved as one organism, thinking faster, acting faster, and striking with a force that left the galaxy in awe. On Earth, hidden command centers buzzed with quiet activity. Humans monitored every sector, every Vorak retreat, and every alien reaction. Generals and commanders gave calm orders, but behind their eyes burned the fierce pride of survival. This was not just war, it was proof of what humanity had endured, what they had learned, and how far they had come. Every citizen, every soldier, every pilot was part of something larger than themselves. They were the legacy of a species that refused to be forgotten. The Council, now trembling, convened an emergency session. They could not ignore Earth's power any longer. The galaxy's strongest empires had been humbled by what was once considered primitive technology, guided by a species that had waited, in silence for centuries. "Prepare defenses," one ambassador whispered. "The humans, they are not what we expected." And they were right. Humanity was more than anyone had imagined. They were patient, clever, and fearless. They were a species that did not merely survive, they mastered survival. And they had waited for the right moment to show the galaxy the full measure of their power. In the void, the remnants of the Vorak scattered, their screams of frustration echoing across light years. Entire fleets that had conquered dozens of systems now fled in terror, not knowing if survival was even possible. And through all of it, humans pursued only what was necessary, leaving the galaxy with one unmistakable message: humanity does not seek war. But if war comes to them, humanity will rise, and it will be unstoppable. For the first time in history, the galaxy understood the truth about Earth. It was no longer a quiet, forgotten planet. It was a force, a shadow, a storm that had waited, in silence for centuries, and now it was awake. And from the hidden depths of the Shadow Gate, more ships prepared to emerge. Humanity's patience had paid off. The galaxy had witnessed the storm's beginning, but it had yet to see its full fury. The Vorak had scattered, their massive swarm broken, their leaders destroyed, and their fleets in ruins. Yet the galaxy remained tense. Every empire, every species, every star system now understood a frightening truth. Earth had returned, and it was no longer a world to be ignored. From deep within the command centers beneath Earth's surface, humans monitored the final skirmishes. Their fleets glided silently through space, finishing what needed to be done. Ships that had slept in shadow for centuries now swept across the void, hunting down the last scattered Vorak vessels with relentless precision. Every movement was deliberate. Every strike was perfect. Humanity's wrath was methodical, unyielding, and cold, but it was tempered by reason. They did not destroy without cause. They did not kill without purpose. They defended, they protected, and they punished only those who threatened their home. Above the planet, life continued as usual. Children played in sunlit parks, cities sparkled at night, and people went about their daily lives unaware of the fleets moving silently in orbit and beyond. Yet, those who worked within the shadows knew the weight of their actions. Every engineer, every pilot, every soldier was part of a legacy that spanned centuries. A legacy of survival, of patience, and of a species that refused to yield to fear or oppression. When the last Vorak vessel was destroyed, a calm settled over the battlefield. The galaxy held its breath, unsure of what would come next. Then, without warning, a single broadcast appeared on every channel, every ship, every system. A human figure stood against a backdrop of stars, calm, poised, and commanding. His voice echoed across the void, simple yet carrying a weight that no empire could ignore. "Earth has returned," he said. "We hid not because we were weak, but because we were patient. We prepared because survival is not chance, it is choice. We built the Shadow Gate not for conquest, but for defense. And now, the galaxy knows the truth. Humanity is not a species to be underestimated, The message continued, each word deliberate, carrying the pride and strength of a species that had endured every trial. We do not seek war. We do not crave power. But if war comes to us, if our homes are threatened, we will not flee. We will not bow. We will rise. And when we rise, the shadows rise with us. The galaxy will remember this day, not for the death we bring, but for the strength we show. Humans are patient, humans are cunning, humans endure, and now humanity is awake. Across light years, the galaxy felt the impact. Systems that had once mocked Earth now shivered in respect. The Council, humbled and awed, realized that their arrogance had been a mistake. Empires that had assumed humans were extinct understood for the first time the full measure of Earth's power. And even as fear spread, there was admiration. Humanity had achieved what no one thought possible: survival through silence, victory through patience, and dominance without needless cruelty. In orbit around Earth, the Shadow Gate pulsed with energy, its black arch shimmering against the stars. Fleets that had once hidden in the shadows now rested, their work done. Humanity had shown the galaxy its strength, not as conquerors but as defenders, as survivors, as a species that had endured everything and grown stronger for it. And as the last Vorak remnants fled into the void, the humans lowered their weapons, but not their vigilance. The galaxy had learned a lesson: never underestimate humanity, never assume patience is weakness, never forget that even in silence, a storm may be waiting. Earth was no longer quiet. Earth was no longer hidden. Earth had emerged from the shadows, and the galaxy would never, ever forget the day humanity rose. And in the hearts of every human watching the stars there was pride, calm, and an unshakable truth. They had survived. They had endured. And they had finally shown the galaxy what it meant to face humanity and fail. The Shadow Gate remained open, a promise to all who would threaten Earth in the future. Humanity waits, and when the time comes, humanity strikes.